your client onboarding process is the perfect time to start address anything that might cause a client to churn. I get people to start thinking about their clients' emotions and the journey that they go through. And one of the key things that they miss every single time is as soon as somebody actually agrees to buy, they're really excited because, you know, you're going to solve their problem for them. They can stop looking for a supplier to do that. And then, you know, they pay or they say yes, and they go directly into buyer's remorse.
Hey everyone, this is Mark DeGrasse, the president of Digital Marketer, and this is the podcast that keeps you up to date on everything you need to know when it comes to digital marketing, from the platforms you'll be focused on to the kind of tactics and tools that are working today. So today, our guest is Ngahuia Galligan, the founder of Harness, who helps agencies with systems and processes, and has actually just started a very exciting new project with our friends over at Height Digital. So we'll get to that in a little bit. In the meantime, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here, Mark.
All right. So you actually just kind of described to me before the show how you transitioned from working with, content marketing influencers over to the agency side. So really quick, why don't we just talk about why you made that transition and why you're kind of focusing on scaling agencies at this point?
Yeah, sure. So I started off in content marketing in the blogging world. I worked with quite a well-known blogger, Darren Rouse, and helped him with major events here in Australia. We had people like Rand Fishkin and Pat. I just forgot Pat's name. How funny is that? But we had a lot of big influencers come down from the North American market down to Australia for our events. And working with Darren, he had me sort of start to manage his businesses more. And so as I got more into the management side of things, I really discovered that I really loved the systems and the processes, and that really got, I got my nerd on, and I really enjoyed that side of things. So with operations, and so yeah, that's when I started to transition around about the pandemic into doing that kind of work as well. And met the Heights through their mastermind and their events, and so now I'm working on this project of downloading JC's brain for agencies.
That's amazing. Well, and just so everybody knows, with processes, because I was actually an HR major, and so, human resources. So it's all process driven and policy driven. And so everything that I do ends up being like that. And I think a lot of people don't understand why, because it seems boring. And a lot of times it seems unnecessary. When people don't understand the purpose of the process and how it was created, they'll be like, well, step 5 and step 7 seem unnecessary, just because they don't understand them. And then they skip them, and then all the things break apart, which is why you have the process in the first place. So how do you convince people about the importance and necessity of the systems and processes that you help create?
Well, one of the main reasons we came to be is because I hate the idea of like entrepreneurial waste or wasted energy and wasted brilliance. So the fact that there are so many people duplicating and kind of trying to write the same SOPs again and again all around the world throughout their businesses is just mind-blowing. It's like such a waste. So firstly, we want to convince people that it's the outcome that's most important thing, right? And that we have this process because it's tried, it's true, it's tested in order to get that outcome. A lot of people may skip those steps because they're boring, and they don't want to do those steps. And that's why it's so exciting now with the advent of AI. We can replace a lot of that manual work. So the idea of having to convince somebody you've got to do all of these steps is starting to actually wane, because we can skip those steps being done by a human and have it done by automation or AI. So it's actually becoming easier to help people move and shift their understanding of what their value to a business is, rather from just being paper pushers and do this, tick the boxes and everything. We can move them towards, all right, become part of the process and helping us design this to make it better. So being able to integrate that thinking into the business is actually the bigger challenge, but it's becoming more exciting now when people realize, oh, I don't have to do the boring stuff. I can actually use, my intelligence and creativity to help inform this process and help inform the outcome. So we don't want to have these manuals and processes and procedures that are sort of like collecting digital dust, as everybody says, and now Google Drive somewhere. We want to have them integrated into our business, integrated into our workflows, and where possible, have them replaced and have it done like automated or AI. Yeah. So
I love that definition. Well, and that's a great use of AI and a not scary use of AI, because I always tell people, I'm always trying to alleviate some concern when it comes to new tools like AI, where it's like, oh, I'm going to lose all my job. It's like, no, you're going to lose all the stuff that you didn't want to do anyways.
Exactly right. Exactly.
And from a process standpoint, you're totally right, where that is a barrier, where you have a step and the step requires 10 sub steps or the knowledge to execute that step, which somebody might not already have. And now you could cross the gap with just use AI. Here's the prompt. Take this prompt, put it in here, copy and paste the result. Good to go. No thinking necessary.
Yeah.
And then
it does. You don't even need to. Yeah. And even a human doesn't need to do that. Like you can even program an AI or an automated employee to do that as well. So yes, it's very exciting. And I just want to say, I'm going to apologize to my very good friend, Pat Flynn, that I forgot your last name. I was starstruck by Mark. So yes.
Pat will understand. Pat's cool.
Yeah, Pat will understand.
He was actually on one of the first podcasts I did for digital marketers.
Awesome.
Like when I first started.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
I confused him with the other Pat Flynn. There's one in the fitness industry too.
Okay. So yes, being able to, I guess, help people understand that they have a creative input and that they should not be scared of all the manual steps anymore, because, someone else can do it, and don't be afraid to let that go either. And the fact is, like, all those manual steps will actually get done better by a computer than by a human, because they'll do exactly what you told it to do. So.
No, and that's a great point too. So it's not only the tasks that you're automating that are the boring tasks, but they're going to be done better because the AI doesn't get bored with whatever.
Faster.
And the energy. And I love how you talk about that, because the creative energy that we have does go to waste when you do have to do a bunch of boring tasks that aren't creative, don't really require any thinking. And then now you're bored with it and you don't want to do it. It's like, yeah, fine.
Exactly.
Get rid of that.
Yeah.
Worry about the stuff that matters.
Yeah. And we want to free up people's time. We want to free up the human time so that they can have more human connection time, because that's what cannot be replaced by AI. So being able to leverage our people's personalities and their communication skills and serve our clients better, serve each other better, create, innovation within a business. And innovation can be stifled by really strict SOPs. But at the same time, there are things that do have to be done. Humans are just not the best people to do them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember at one point I was actually the CFO for a startup, and I used to write all these processes, and then people would skip them because they wouldn't know that this one report I have to make is necessary for you to do this one thing. And if you don't do this one thing, I can't make this report. And, you don't even see the report. It doesn't matter to you.
Exactly.
Still completely necessary. So, okay. So I love that. I think I think hopefully everybody's convinced processes are there for a reason, and don't worry, the processes are getting easier, so you won't have to do as much work. But let's just talk about what that means for agencies, because I think agencies, and I was completely guilty of this, where I had an agency and it was 100% dependent on me doing custom stuff all the time, which completely stifled growth and really made it difficult for me to even hire help, because everything was so custom and based on me that it was really hard to train somebody to be me, essentially. So is that kind of how you move forward with?
Oh, yes. So I guess the first thing is people kind of think, all right, when should I do my systems and processes? And I would say, if you've got bandwidth to do it, do it. But if you're still in the trenches worried about income, sales, getting that revenue in the front door, what I find is that the owner and the company they're just not ready to give the bandwidth required to start working on their systems and processes in a meaningful way. So at that point, it's like, if you're a business owner and you're finding yourself and you're basically in everything within the business, it's like, at least start recording, all right, this is how I just did this, and hand it over. This is how I did this, and hand it over. So you'll start building up, like every business has systems and processes. They just aren't defined and are not documented. And your systems and processes will define the outcome of your business, regardless of whether they're formalized or not. So starting to just recognize that and realize, all right, I'm in this all the time. For a business owner, if it's something that drains you and doesn't excite you, that's the first thing that you've got to start looking at delegating. So it's so easy now to record yourself, have an AI recorder, transcribe, summarize, whatever. There's amazing tools like Scribe that can just follow all your clicks, create the screenshots. Like you can create SOPs fairly quickly now. So starting to get just some of those simple things off your desk as a business owner will start helping you get in that mindset of, actually, I don't have to do everything. And also once you get to that point where I'm like, I've got a good way of doing this. If you can define what it is that has to be done and what the outcome is, then you can create an SOP for somebody else to start doing that. So it's not difficult to get started, but if you're sort of starting to think, oh no, I need all my systems and processes, and I need someone to help me do this because I can't see the bigger picture, that's when we can come in, because we do see the bigger picture. And we can, my superpower is bringing order from chaos, being able to see a whole bunch of different pieces, moving parts, and sort of elegantly sort of bring them together into those processes. So I have a whole process for processes, very meta. And that's when it's worth bringing somebody in. If you just can't see the forest for the trees, it's good to have somebody coming in from the outside, but it is very much needs to be owned within the business. You do need to have, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Here's the value we get from having all of our systems and processes dialed in.
I love that. Well, and it kind of reminds me of a quote that, to be successful is not what you do, it's what you do consistently. Because I think as entrepreneurs, it's easy to just do because you're an action person. You're out there, you're getting things done. You're not lazy. You're going to do it. And maybe you think you're the best one to do it, but at the end of the day, it's like, no. I think when I started making processes for my business, like nothing felt better. No achievement I had felt better than watching literally anyone do the thing that I was spending hours at a time doing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have to do this anymore. Like, it's incredible. It's like the best.
It's very freeing. Yes, it is. It is. And for that whole process to happen, you have to sort of be able to let go. You've got to feel like you can let go and involve other people in that process as well. The other thing that we do as business owners when we start, documenting everything and like, this is our way of doing things, is that agency owners can become quite sort of insular and internally focused, particularly when it comes to things like I've gone through a lot of people's client onboarding processes, and they're very internal focused. We need you to, pay this invoice, sign this contract for us. We need you to fill out this form, and then we're going to do this, and then our team are going to do this, 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 and this. And they kind of forget about who's on the other side of that process. And so when I look at a process is a solution. Okay. You might say that, the whole reason we do client onboarding is so we can get the work started. But really the problem that you're trying to solve is churn. And people are like, what? And I'm like, your client onboarding process is the perfect time to start address anything that might cause a client to churn. So if you start thinking about designing your process to avoid churn, you start looking more at the client and less at just what you have to do internally within the company. So you're thinking, I get people to start thinking about their clients' emotions and the journey that they go through. And one of the key things that they miss every single time is, as soon as somebody actually agrees to buy, they're really excited because, you're going to solve their problem for them. They can stop looking for a supplier to do that. And then, they pay or they say yes, and they go directly into buyer's remorse. And so they're going to go into this stage. And if we forget them, that lingers on, right? So sometimes the first thing we do is like hit them with this big legal document to sign, or, they just get all this stuff in their email and they're just like, oh man, but what if, Mark gets on a quick call or does a little video shot and go, hey, I'm so excited that you're coming on board. It's really great. And we're going to look after you, blah, 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 blah. It's something as simple as that in your process can make a huge difference towards how that client experiences your company and informs whether or not they may or may not churn. Like, you know what, Mark said they're going to look after us. I believe they will. I'll just reach out and say, hey, look, what's going on here? So looking at the process from all of the stakeholders in the process makes a massive difference.
I love that. Well, and the focus on churn is really a focus on the customer, which is what leads to our customers. And you're so right. I love the legal document example because, you sign up for a service and then they hit you with not just a legal document, but with like 10 documents from 10 different services and then blah, blah, blah. And then you're like overwhelmed. And that's the first experience you have when you hire a company. And that's terrible. Whereas if you just said like, hey, here's a video, we have to figure out some paperwork and that's great and everything, but it's going to be fine. And it's not that big a deal. Just get it done. And here's a page with all of them on it.
Call us and we can take you through the document. So, rather than waiting and playing that whole chase game of getting the document signed, it's like, okay, the next step is we're going to go through the contract. So book in this call and we'll have, we'll go through the contract with you, make sure that you're happy with everything, take your payment, get on to the next bit, So it's
and then we get to the fun stuff, you can always lead up to it and start to talk it back.
Hey everyone, I want to quickly interrupt the podcast for a special announcement. If you're listening to this podcast because you want to become a better marketer, then I want to share with you what I believe to be the most comprehensive digital marketing program on the market today. It's called the Digital Marketing Mastery Certification. You'll learn to leverage the tools and channels to predictably and profitably drive awareness, leads, sales, and referrals. Everything you need to know to become a true master of digital marketing. We'll take an in-depth look at the core digital marketing competencies, including content, email, social media, community, digital advertising, data and optimization, and more. After earning your digital marketing strategy certificate, you'll have the tools to effectively reach your target audience through a full scope marketing strategy. Get started today at digitalmarketer.com/strategy-cert.
Because, with my agency, the biggest barrier, because it was website and brand design, I was like, I need content. Like, I need to know who you are. I need to know what you sell. And it was just like, it would be impossible. And 3 months would pass. And then 6 months would pass. And then they're pissed off because they don't have a website. And you're pissed off because you can't do anything. And the whole situation is bad, even though you all want the same thing. So I think, if you just have the process, tell people, set that expectation, set the steps, make it look like a complete system that you've done a million times. Then people feel comfortable and then they feel taken care of. And even if it's not your fault, because I used to say that, I'm like, it's technically not my fault. This isn't done. You didn't get me the information I needed. What am I supposed to do? Where it's like, no, if you look at it from the customer perspective, obviously the content that you're asking for is difficult to generate. So get on a Zoom call, ask them the questions, transcribe the information, make it easy for the customer. That's your job. And then everything gets done.
And that's that human component, right? So rather than, and this is the problem I see as well, just because we can automate things doesn't mean we should. So that's a really great point that you've just come up with then. Like if we just send them a million forms to fill in and all these instructions and it's like, oh, that was so good, I didn't have to do anything. And like, my email automation system sent it all out when I clicked a button. I'm such a great agency owner. It's just like, well, you didn't get the result. You're not getting the result that you want. So that's when that's really great. Like, okay, well, let's build a human connection into the process and just say, when this happens, you're going to schedule a call with the account manager. The account manager is going to jump on with you, interview you, grab the logo from you. The thing is, it's their time, right? So if you create that time to say, all right, go and dig through your folders and find your logo, get this, get that, and talk them through it. It's so much quicker than the elapsed time when you try and automate that. So
well, I think the time component is huge too, but again, it goes back to expectations. Because if you could say like, hey, this looks like a lot of stuff, but the forms I just sent you could actually be filled out in 5 minutes. Like if you could just take 5 minutes, then we can move on and we'll get to the fun stuff. And you could preface it and massage it. And really, since you have a process, you can test it where you could say, we're going to systematically do the next 10 like this, then we're going to evaluate, then we're going to refine if we need to, because we're all going to find issues with the initial process. And I think that's probably part of your process, which is your process, where it's not perfect. There's no way you can make it perfect the first time. And the instant you enact the process, you're going to find flaws, and then you have to refine it. It's just like anything, just like any product you create or service.
In fact, the software that we use has machine learning built into it. And so it watches every process run and how it runs. It's like how long it takes, who's doing it. So it can actually give you insights and say, you know what? Every time Mark is the account manager involved in the handover, that client ends up upselling, buying more, their lifetime value is higher, their churn rate, they don't churn. It can give you that, and it'll be like, what's Mark doing that other people are doing when they run the same process, and then we can use it as a learning opportunity to go, all right, let's download Mark's brain a little bit here. What are you doing differently here that is getting you that result? So it's amazing, like how far things have come to allow us to get those types of insights. And you can only do that when you're running the processes. It's not just like a pretty map in a PowerPoint somewhere. It's actually an executable process. That, assigning things to people, it's recording, how long it takes for the entire process to be completed, all of those things, the different choices that are made along the way. So it's very exciting time to be working in this space. I love it.
Oh, I think, what you just said is huge, is the fact that you could, the refinement of the process, but also how that is part of the process. And now you're right, because I think a lot of times when I talk about procedures, people think of an SOP document. They think it's a written check 1, check 2, check 3. But now with, modern technology, ClickUp, where it's not just about here's the process. It's here's the step. Here's instructions for the step. Here's a video for executing the step. And then every time you do it and you check the mark, it's a recording that now your manager gets a report that this process was done correctly. And I think for business owners, that's the biggest part, is the tracking of the processes, because that's not easy. Well, it wasn't easy. Now it is.
So just to give you an example of the client onboarding process, for example, you might have like this big flow chart of different things that are all happening at same time, and the software that we use allows you to get a heat map, and it can see, all right, all of these clients are currently going through this process, and I've got 3 here, I've got 6 here, I've got 10 here, and I'm like, why are they stuck there at the handover? And so you can then click on that and see which 10 clients are at that point, how long they've been sitting there waiting to be handed over to the account manager, any notes that any of the team have made about that particular client to that point. And then you can go, do you know what's going on here? And you can message the person that it's assigned to and saying, hey, what's going on here? Like, why are we getting stuck here? And then that becomes a really good focus for the next sort of team meeting. It's like, all right, what's holding up the handover process? Why are we getting stuck here? How can we do this better? So having that overview of what's going on in the business from that sort of process map view is super powerful, and you can understand every little bit in the process, which is kind of a bit nicer than sometimes just seeing another list inside ClickUp or Asana or whatever, where you can't get that same macro view of what's going on with everything that's running through that particular process.
That's huge. Well, I think I do have to ask, what is the software you're talking about?
So the software that we use is called Process Plan. And so process. I'm in Australia, if anyone hadn't figured that out.
I just pronounced that wrong.
Just don't tell me to systematize something. It's systemize, okay?
I definitely say systematize.
I know. So it's called Process Plan. We're a certified partner of theirs, and we've been using it this year and just absolutely love it. It's the first time that I've found some software that just speaks to me on every level, and I can see how powerful it is. So it's process mapping, but it's also a database, and it also runs executable instances and, actively assigns things to people. So you could actually just get an email in your inbox and it'll be like, can you approve this? Or, has this been done? And you can just click complete, and then it'll move on to the next part of the process and assign it to the next person. So you don't even have to go into the software. It can be quite complicated, which is why we work as a partner with our clients. And we actually don't just say, here's the software. It's like, it's software, it's a systems as a service. So we actually manage the account for them and integrate it into their business. So they don't even really even look at it unless they have to. And that also allows us to be able to do things like download JC's brain and get it into a process format and download every single SOP and get it into that same mapped out format that allows us to do things like click of a button, here's a PDF SOP, you know, or let's actually just link that straight into an Asana task so that whenever this comes up, assign it to them in Asana, which is where they're used to working, or ClickUp or wherever it may be. And then they can just click in and go, oh yeah. So they're looking at process map and don't even realize that they are. But everything that they need to do that particular task is right there. The instructions, links to SOPs, a video if they need it, a checklist, any fields that they might need to fill in to help inform the next step in the process is all right there at their fingertips. So we're not asking them to go and look and drive or go to a wiki, you know, a team wiki or anything like that to figure out how do I do this. So it's right there, which is especially useful for processes that aren't done necessarily every day. Accounting business owners, like every time we had to do like our quarterly reports to the tax here in Australia, it's called, you know, business activity summary, BAS, I think that's what it's called. It's once a quarter, and every time it came around, I was like, oh, how do I do this again? So it was just always like, oh my God. And then you go in and you try to figure out how to do it again. Like if you've got an SOP that just, you know, it's right there, click of the button, this, great, done, fantastic. So those SOPs and processes are great, regardless of what the recurrence is, and more important when that recurrence is longer.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny because we're also concerned about time and efficiency and saving money and blah, 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 blah. But then it's like, could you please write down how you did that? It's like, I don't have time for that.
Nobody wants to write down anything, and we don't want them to write down anything either. So that's why
I think I know why. Okay, hear me out. I think the reason why it's so hard to get people to write down how they did something was because it took them so long to develop the process to do the thing the way they do it. It's like going back to teach somebody else or write it down is like, it took me so long to figure this out. So you just have this like inbuilt resentment for going back to the beginning, but that's what you got to do. And it's not easy all the time. Even with your help, I'm sure it's still a process, still takes a commitment of time and effort, but it's 100% worth it, because when you give up just a single responsibility and just know it's going to get done, and know if it doesn't get done, you know exactly why it didn't get done, is invaluable. So I think everybody should hire you. How do people do that?
How do they do that? Well, they can get in touch with me, obviously. So we can put some links in the show notes. But if they go to harnesshq.com/digital marketer, I'll have something there for them, including like a free account on Process Plan, where they can actually add me to the account for free as well. Like if they continue on to a paid version, they can have me as their little side buddy there without having to pay for me in their account. And I'll put in a few little templates and things to get them started as well on some of the processes. So I've got a good one on client onboarding that I can put in there. But like you were saying, the reason that people can be resentful about documenting their process, it's not just that they have to go back to the beginning, is that they're actually not that very good at it, because there's a lot of assumed knowledge that, you know, they know how they got to that point and they miss so many steps. So that's when, you know, it does become a bit of a process where, you know, people will be like, oh, how did you get to that? Well, where did you get to, like, I don't know how to do this that you've just talked about, but haven't shown me how to do. The process that we go through is to help not just download the step-by-step that you do, but also draw out what was your decision-making process there? How did you decide to do this versus that in that moment? So that we can actually download the thought processes of the person so that the team actually learn from that. And then they're going to ask you questions less. You know, they're not going to be, hey, this decision, I've got to go to somebody for that. It's like, that gets rid of that bottleneck. So you need to remove yourself, not as a bottleneck of just doing the thing, but also deciding about the thing as well. So being able to impart all of that and build it into a process is key. And that's something that we do as well, and that the software allows you to do, is to have those edge cases built into the process so that the person who's running the process can easily make those decisions themselves.
I love that. Wow, that is a very good inclusion for why people don't make processes, because it does, and that's part of it too. And you do have to do a lot of self-examination, and you have to look at how you did this, why you did this. Maybe instead of making somebody make the big decision, you're giving them 5 options that they could understand why they apply these things, and then make the decision on those 5 options. So it's involved, but I do have to say that it's 100% not only worth it, but necessary if you want to get past a certain point of business scaling. Because the minute everybody knows it, you hit a plateau and you're like, I literally can't do more work than I'm doing right now, and if I did, it would just increase my workload, and then that increase, and then growth actually becomes too expensive to do. And so, and I think processes are really the barrier for most businesses that reach that point. So,
yeah. And if you get to the point where you are not just offloading the things that you do, but also how you think about it. So for example, if you're left, doing the strategy part of the business for the client, because that's just how your brain works, you've got all this experience and everything like that, being able to download how to do strategy into a process that anybody can run, that's hugely beneficial, because it still has your stamp on it. It's got the brand voice, how you do things, all of your values, all unpacked into a process that anybody can run. That's when it becomes very, very valuable. And it's more than just check this box, do this, click here, fill this out. It's actually, here's how my brain works. And you can run a process through it. It's amazing.
It's amazing. Well, and I think what you're doing it makes it even simpler.
It does, because we do it for you.
Do it for you, set up with the software, and I think that's huge, because that's what people kind of expect these days. Because digital marketers, we came up with awesome frameworks, right? And you could execute these frameworks, and you can make all the money, and blah blah blah. Problem is, you have to do the stuff in the frameworks. But now, thanks to AI, like our core journey, the customer value journey, I made in a single prompt. And so now that's not going to give you the understanding, but it'll give you the execution of it. And so that's an example of a simple process for turning anybody into a marketer, technically, using 1 step or 2 steps, whatever it is. And the fact that you could do that with any process, especially in regards to marketing, is huge. So thank you for what you're doing. I think you're going to be very successful at it. And we'll have to have you on again, because I'd love to start breaking down, because we kind of talked about the broad, here's what processes are, but if we could go deeper into, hey, here's what a marketing process looks like, here's what a customer support process looks like, those are all have nuances that are specific to the department that they're in. So we got a million topics. We'll have you back.
We do. I'd love to come back again, and it's been great to speak to you from the future here in Melbourne, Australia on a Friday morning. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. We're working on the time issue. We're like, we need somebody over there, because we have plenty of audience over there.
We should have just done it in Costa Rica when we were both there together. So.
Exactly. Well, we tried. I was busy.
It was too busy. It was crazy. Everyone was having too much fun.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll have you back soon. And again, if people want to find you, what was the website? Or
harnesshq.com. Go to /digital marketer. I'll have something there for everybody.
Fantastic. And we'll put that in the description as well, so everybody can stay tuned for that. But thank you so much for coming on. And thank you so much for listening. Be sure to hit that follow button so you get notified when all of our new episodes release. Please share this with that friend who's clueless about digital marketing. And don't forget to visit digitalmarketer.com, where you can access all of our courses, certifications, and training programs. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.